containing an attempt to recover and reconstitute the lost origins of the myths and mysteries, types and symbols, religion and language, with Egypt for the mouthpiece, and Africa as the birthplace.
You know, usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of absolute precision.
Right.
It's almost like engineering. You fall off your bike, you break your arm, you go to the hospital, and the doctor puts the x-ray up on the light box, points to that jagged white line in the bone and says, well, there it is.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Right. It's binary. It's objective reality, broken or not broken.
Exactly. It's clean. And frankly, it's comforting. We as humans desperately want things to be visible. We want them to be categorized and fixable. We want the map to match the territory.
Which works beautifully in an orthopedic ward.
Yeah.
But it falls apart almost instantly the moment you step into the world of ancient religious texts.
Oh, completely. You step into ancient history, and suddenly that x-ray machine is broken, the light box is flickering, and the doctor is speaking a language that died 3,000 years ago. We are looking at a diagnostic landscape that is just entirely murky. And that murkiness peaks, I mean, it reaches its absolute zenith when we start talking about the Book of Revelation.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it has to be one of the most polarizing, most aggressively debated texts in the history of human literature.
Without a doubt.
Wars have been fought over it, cults have been formed around it, blockbuster movie franchises have been based on it.
And yet, arguably, nobody can agree on what it actually is.
Right. Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive. We're taking two radically different sources.
Two completely incompatible lenses.
Yes, incompatible lenses on how to read the Book of Revelation.
Yeah.
And we're putting them head to head. We want to understand the foundational assumptions of these two approaches.
And let me tell you, the contrast between our sources today couldn't be starker. It is intellectual whiplash in the best way possible.
I am so ready for this.
So on one side of the ring, we have a very modern, highly accessible theological video by Vlad Savchuk. It's titled The Book of Revelation Simply Explained.
Okay.
And this perfectly represents a contemporary, evangelical, futurist interpretation. It's the way millions of modern Christians are taught to read the book today.
Right, the mainstream modern view.
Exactly. And on the other side, we have Gerald Massey's Egyptian wisdom in Revelation of John the Divine.
Which is not a YouTube video.
Not even close. It is a dense, incredibly rigorous 19th century Egyptological treatise.
Wow.
I mean, it is a masterclass in comparative mythology and archaeoastronomy.
Archaeoastronomy. That's a mouthful.
It is. But when you put Massey's deep historical claims up against Savchuk's modern theological claims, it really forces us to ask some profound questions about how texts survive, how symbols evolve, and how we might be completely misunderstanding the ancient mind.
Okay, let's establish the baselines here. I want to start with Savchuk, because his framework is probably the one most people are at least tangentially familiar with.
Sure, even just from pop culture.
Right. So in his video, Savchuk lays out his position very cleanly. He acknowledges right up front that Christians have historically held different views on Revelation.
He does do that.
He mentions the preterist view, which argues the book is mostly about first century Roman persecution. He mentions the historic view, which traces church history, and the idealist view, which says it's purely symbolic of the general struggle between good and evil.
But he doesn't stay there. He plants his flag very firmly.
Exactly. He plants his flag in the futurist camp.
Okay.
According to Savchuk's framework, everything from Revelation chapter 4 through 22 is a prophetic roadmap for the literal end of the world.
A literal end.
Yes. We are talking about a literal Great Tribulation, a literal Antichrist, and a literal physical return of Jesus Christ.
Wow.
He describes the structure of Revelation not as a straight timeline, but as a spiral of visions.
A spiral.
Yeah, it uses Old Testament imagery to circle around and around, promising ultimate victory over literal supernatural evil.
Which, you know, if you accept the premise that the Bible is a supernaturally dictated document, it makes perfect internal sense.
Right.
Savchuk frames Revelation as a miraculous vision given to a literal first-century Christian named John. The purpose of this vision is to prepare believers for a pending global apocalypse.
It's a survival guide for the end times.
Exactly. But then we open Gerald Massey's work.
Oh.
Specifically, we are looking at Book 11 of his larger text. And the moment you read Massey, the entire futurist paradigm just shatters.
Shatters.
Completely. What I found so shocking is Massey's central thesis. He argues that the Book of Revelation has absolutely zero historical or prophetic value regarding the end of the human world.
Zero.
Zero. He doesn't mince words at all.
Zero. He says it is not a pre-Christian prophecy that gets fulfilled in Christian history. So if it's not a prophecy, what does Massey say it actually is?
Well, Massey argues that Revelation is actually the surviving debris. And that is his specific word, debris.
Debris, like wreckage.
Yes, the debris of ancient Egyptian astronomical mythology and eschatology.
Okay, wait, define eschatology in this context, because usually that word means end of the world theology.
That's a great point. In modern theology, eschatology means the end times.
Right.
But when Massey uses it regarding the Egyptians, he means their theology of the afterlife, the journey of the soul after death. Massey's core argument is that early Christian communities adopted these ancient Egyptian texts and symbols, but over time, they completely lost what he calls the gnosis.
The gnosis.
Yeah.
The hidden knowledge.
Precisely. Massey defines gnosis as the meaning which hath wisdom.
Oh, I like that phrasing.
It's very poetic. The early Christians kept pictures, they kept all the wild imagery, but they essentially lost the instruction manual.
So let me make sure I'm wrapping my head around this. If Savchuk views Revelation as this terrifying supernatural roadmap to the future of humanity,
Right.
Massey is saying early Christians basically stumbled upon an ancient Egyptian astrolabe.
Yeah.
Like a complex map of the stars, the agricultural seasons, and the soul's journey. And they literally mistook it for a doomsday prophecy machine.
That is a brilliant analogy, yes.
Yeah.
Massey is saying they took a celestial map of how the universe cycles and they historicized it.
They flattened it out?
Exactly. They took a mythological, astronomical cycle and flattened it out into a linear timeline of human destruction.
Okay, if Massey is right, we have to understand how a mix-up of that magnitude actually happens.
It's a massive mix-up.
It is.
Yup.
And to do that, we have to look at the supposed author of Revelation and the geographical setting where this whole story kicks off.
Right.
Savchuk's position is straightforward. We're dealing with a literal first-century historical man, the Apostle John, who have been exiled by the Roman Empire to the rocky Isle of Patmos in the Aegean Sea.
Which grounds the text in first-century geopolitics.
Exactly.
But Massey bypasses Rome entirely and goes straight to the Egyptian root. In Book 11, around page 690, Massey argues that the figure of John the Divine is not a historical first-century person at all.
Wait, not a real person?
No. He asserts it is a direct linguistic and mythological adaptation of Taht-Aan.
Taht-Aan, okay, who is that?
In Egyptian mythology, Taht-Aan, where Anan is the linguistic equivalent of John.
Anan equals John, got it.
Right. Taht-Aan is the divine scribe. He is the penman of the gods, the figure to whom ancient traditions attributed tens of thousands of books or papyrus rolls. He is the ultimate record keeper of the celestial mysteries.
Whoa, hold on. I can follow a name changing as cultures mix, but Patmos is a real island in Greece.
It is.
I can go online right now and book a vacation to Patmos. Are you saying John wasn't there at all? How does Massey explain away a real geographical location?
This is where Massey's comparative method is so crucial.
Okay.
On page 692, he addresses Patmos directly. Massey identifies this not as the literal Aegean island, but as the mythological Isle of Flame.
Isle of Flame, that sounds intense.
Yes, it's from chapter 175 of the Egyptian ritual of the resurrection.
It was often called the Book of the Dead, right?
Exactly. The Isle of Flame is a specific mythic location in the underworld where the divine scribe receives the revelations of the gods.
Oh, I see.
Massey argues that later compilers of the text took a real geographical name, Patmos, and pasted it over the mythic concept of the Isle of Flame.
Just to ground it.
Yes, to ground the story in recent history. It's syncretism. It's taking a cosmic underworld journey and domesticating it by setting it in the Roman Empire.
That changes the context of literally everything that follows in the book.
Everything.
If we aren't in the Aegean Sea, but we are in the Egyptian underworld with a divine scribe, then what happens when we reach the famous throne room scene?
Oh, the throne room is fascinating.
Savchuk sees chapter 4 as a literal peek into heaven. He draws direct parallels to the Old Testament prophet Ezekiel.
Right.
He sees a literal God on a literal throne, surrounded by 24 elders, giving spiritual validation to John.
But if you apply Massey's archaeo-astronomical lens, which he details exhaustively on pages 701 and 702, that throne room isn't a supernatural spiritual realm. It's a map of the night sky.
Explain that. How does a throne room equal a star map?
Well, Massey points out that the heaven being described is the celestial mount, the pole of the ancient night sky.
Okay.
And those 24 elders sitting around the throne, they aren't human saints or angels.
What are they?
They are the 24 zodiacal stars, 12 in the northern hemisphere, 12 in the southern.
Oh my.
Yeah, in Babylonian and Egyptian calendars, these 24 stars acted as the divine judges of time. They mark the hours of the day and the cycles of the year.
So they took a functional timekeeping system and turned it into a heavenly choir.
Exactly. And Massey goes further, you know, the 7 spirits, or the 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne.
Yeah, Savchuk treats those as representing the Holy Spirit, or spiritual realities of God's presence.
Right. But Massey strips away the theology and ties them to very specific Egyptian stellar deities.
Of course he does.
He explains that the 7 spirits before the throne are the Seishu, or the servants, of the deity Horus.
Okay.
And the lampstands are the Kabsu gods of light. They are literal star watchers.
Okay, but what about the really weird stuff in that throne room?
You mean the animals?
Yes, the 4 living creatures. The text says there's a creature with the face of a lion, one like a calf, one with the face of a man, and a flying eagle.
Right.
Savchuk links them back to Ezekiel's spiritual visions, suggesting they represent different aspects of God's creation or character.
And Massey, on page 705, traces them to something much older and much more tangible. Egyptian funerary rites.
Funerary rites, so dead bodies.
Yes, specifically the 4 corner keepers of the celestial mount.
Okay.
In Egyptian mythology, these are Amsta, Hapi, Tumumutef, and Kapsanuf. They are deities depicted with the heads of an ape, a jackal, a bird, and a human.
Wow. Ape, jackal, bird, human. That is incredibly close to lion, calf, eagle, man.
It's the exact same archetype, and their original practical function in Egyptian religion was to guard the 4 corners of the coffin of Osiris.
The coffin.
Yeah. The coffin represented the earth itself, oriented to the 4 cardinal directions.
Wait, so Massey is saying the early church inherited an Egyptian funerary text, the literal layout of a coffin and its guardians.
Yes.
And they slowly reimagined it as the throne room of God.
That is exactly what he's saying.
That is wild.
And if we zoom out to look at the methodological difference between our 2 sources here, the gap is just massive.
Oh, for sure.
Savchuk's framework requires you to believe these are miraculous, unprecedented visions of a spiritual realm given to one guy in the 1st century.
Right.
Massey's method connects every single visual symbol to a specific, pre-existing Egyptian eschatological function or astronomical reality that had been around for millennia.
Which means, from Massey's perspective, Savchuk's approach is structurally flawed from the jump.
How so?
Well, because Savchuk thinks he is interpreting Christian symbols, but he's interpreting them through a localized, 1st century historical lens.
Ah, I see what you mean.
It's heavily layered with later Christian doctrine. He is totally disconnected from the thousands of years of mythological evolution that actually produced those symbols.
That is the core of the critical assessment of the futurist method. It lacks historical depth. It assumes the text sprang into existence in a vacuum in 95 AD.
Let's move into how the book handles time, because this is where Revelation gets really cinematic.
Oh, absolutely. The special effects budget goes way up.
Yeah, exactly. We have the famous cycle of judgments, the 7 seals being broken, the 7 trumpets sounding, the bowls of wrath being poured out.
Right.
Now, to be fair to Savchuk, he makes a really astute structural observation in his video. He points out that Revelation is not chronologically linear. It's a spiral.
Yes, he is structurally observant there.
Yeah.
Savchuk recognizes the recapitulation in the text.
Recapitulation.
Right. He notes that the 6th seal, the 7th trumpet, and the 7th bowl all seem to describe the exact same catastrophic end of the world, just viewed from different angles.
Right. But because of his futurist assumptions, he still believes that spiral is pointing toward a literal physical end of the human world, a coming apocalypse.
Right.
Massey, on the other hand, agrees that it's not a human timeline. But he argues, specifically around page 693, that the end of the world described in Revelation actually means the end of an eon.
An eon, which is a vast, specific period of time.
Okay, time out. I need you to explain this like I'm 5.
Okay.
Because Massey gets incredibly technical here. What exactly does he mean by the end of an eon?
He is talking about a precessional cycle of the stars.
Okay.
also known as the precession of the equinoxes.
Astronomy 101 time. What is precession?
Okay, imagine the Earth is a spinning top. As a top spins, it doesn't stay perfectly straight, right? It wobbles on its axis.
Yeah, it kind of leans around.
The Earth does the exact same thing, but very, very slowly. It takes about 26,000 years for the Earth to complete one full wobble.
26,000 years. Okay.
Because of this wobble, the perspective we have of the stars from Earth slowly shifts.
Like the backdrop is moving.
Exactly. Every 2,000 years or so, the constellation that sits behind the sun on the first day of spring, the vernal equinox, it changes.
Okay, I follow you. The backdrop of the sky slowly rotates over thousands of years.
Exactly. In ancient astronomy, the heavens were divided into specific sections to track this.
Okay.
So when Revelation describes these massive catastrophes, mountains falling, islands sinking, the sky rolling up like a scroll,
Right, the scary stuff.
Massey argues these aren't literal earthquakes and meteors. These dramatic images represent the shifting of the pole star.
Oh, wow.
It is the passing away of the old celestial heptanomus, which is an ancient 7-part division of the heavens used by early stargazers.
A 7-part heaven.
Yeah. When the astronomical age changes because of that wobble, the old heaven literally passes away to make room for the new one.
That is mind-blowing. So the world isn't ending, the calendar's just turning over.
Exactly. It's just a really dramatic calendar update. And the central figure that initiates this entire cosmic turnover in Revelation is the Lamb.
The Lamb of God,
Ugh.
who is uniquely worthy to open the seals.
Right.
Now, obviously, Savchuk identifies the Lamb as Jesus Christ, the ultimate perfect sacrifice, standing in stark contrast to the beast.
Sure.
For the evangelical framework, it's a profound theological statement about the nature of salvation.
But here is where Massey's archaeoastronomy really challenges the Orthodox reading.
Okay, how so?
On pages 721 and 722, Massey asks a fundamental question. Why is the symbol a lamb?
Yeah, why not a dove?
Why not a dove? Why not a fish? He says it's directly tied to that precessional wobble we just talked about.
Wait, really? The lamb is astronomy?
Yes. Around the year 2410 BC, the vernal equinox, the position of the sun on the first day of spring, it slowly wobbled out of the constellation of Taurus and into the constellation of Aries.
Taurus being the bull, Aries being the ram.
The lamb.
Precisely. Before 2410 BC, the divine sun in Egyptian myth, Horus, was worshipped on the eastern horizon as a calf.
Because they were in the age of Taurus.
Exactly, matching the age of Taurus.
Yeah.
But when the stars shifted, the solar symbolism had to shift to keep the calendar accurate.
Oh my goodness.
The divine figure literally became the Lamb of God because the spring sun was now rising in the sign of the ram.
I have to stop and absorb that.
It's a lot.
When Revelation talks about the Lamb taking a book with 7 seals and opening it,
Yeah.
Massey is saying this is quite literally an ancient, coded way of describing the springtime sun moving into the zodiac sign of Aries.
Thereby opening a brand new astronomical age.
That is his exact argument.
That completely changes the genre of the text.
It really does.
It changes it from a terrifying, bloody prediction of the future into a majestic, highly technical observation of the cosmos.
Right.
The lamb taking the book is just the sun doing what the sun does.
It replaces anxiety with awe.
Yeah.
But of course, you can't have this epic cosmic drama without a villain.
Right. If the lamb is just a marker of spring, then who is the enemy? Because Revelation is famous for its terrifying monsters.
The best monsters.
The dragon with 7 heads, the beast rising from the sea. How does Massey explain the beast if he's just looking at a star map?
Well, let's look at how Savchuk frames it first.
Okay.
Savchuk interprets the monsters through moral binaries. For him, it's the pure bride versus the corrupt prostitute.
Right.
The lamb versus the beast. It's a cosmic, spiritual battle of true worship versus false worship. God's kingdom versus Satan's counterfeit earthly kingdom.
Which, again, feels very intuitive if you're reading it as a spiritual guidebook. Good versus evil.
But Massey argues that Savchuk is applying a moral, spiritual lens to symbols that have purely natural and mythological roots.
Interesting.
Let's take the 7-headed dragon and the beast rising from the sea.
Yeah, let's talk about the beast.
On pages 706 and 707, Massey identifies this beast not as Satan, but as Sebek,
Sebek.
the ancient Egyptian crocodile-headed solar deity.
Crocodile god.
Yes. Now, in Revelation chapter 13, there's a specific detail about the beast having a head that suffered a death stroke, but the fatal wound was healed.
Yes, Savchuk views this as a counterfeit resurrection by the Antichrist trying to mock Jesus.
Right. Massey, however, argues this represents a specific mythological evolution within Egyptian culture.
An evolution of the myth itself.
Yes. It is the transition from the older animal-headed deity Sebek to the newer human-headed solar deity Horus.
Wait, so what was the wound?
The healing of the wound is an allegory for the modernization of the myth itself, changing the god's face from a scary reptile to a relatable human.
Wow. It's an ancient way of describing a theological rebrand.
Exactly. It's a rebrand. And we see this mythological parallel again with the woman clothed with the sun.
The one who is chased by the dragon in Revelation 12.
Yes. Savchuk views her as representing God's people, the true church, being persecuted by Satan.
And Massey.
Massey identifies her directly as the goddess Isis.
Isis. Okay.
In Egyptian myth, Isis has to flee and hide in the papyrus marshes of Lower Egypt to safely deliver her child, Horus.
Why is she hiding?
Because they are being pursued by the Intap dragon. Apap is the giant mythic reptile of darkness, drought, and non-existence. The story in Revelation is a direct mythic parallel to the Isis and Horus legend.
This is all fascinating, but there's one symbol in Revelation that is just incredibly loaded.
Which one?
And honestly, reading Massey's take on it felt genuinely tragic. I'm talking about Babylon, the great harlot.
Oh.
The scarlet woman riding the beast.
This is perhaps the most profound clash in our entire deep dive.
Yeah. Savchuk sees the great harlot as the ultimate symbol of spiritual unfaithfulness. She represents a corrupt, counterfeit religion that seduces the world away from God.
Right, a symbol of moral decay.
But Massey reveals an entirely different historical origin on pages 697 and 698.
He does.
And it raises a massive question about how ancient symbols get co-opted and demonized by conquering cultures.
It's a dark piece of history.
It is. Massey explains that the Scarlet Woman riding the beast was originally an Egyptian deity named Apt.
Apt.
And Apt was depicted as a pregnant hippopotamus.
Right, and she wasn't a villain at all.
No.
She represented the Great Bear constellation and was revered as the sacred Great Mother of the Egyptian mysteries. She was the primal creatrix. She brought forth life.
Okay, I have to stop you. How on earth does a sacred pregnant mother hippopotamus, a creator goddess, become the whore of Babylon?
It's quite the jump.
What is the mechanism there? How does that happen?
It is the tragedy of losing the gnosis.
The lost instruction manual again.
Right. Massey argues that as theology evolved over millennia, specifically as it became more rigidly patriarchal in the Jewish and later Christian traditions, these older matriarchal deities of nature and creation became threats to the new order.
They had to get rid of them.
Exactly. The people who inherited the astronomical symbols, the uranographic signs, meaning maps of the stars, they misunderstood them.
Or maybe deliberately recast them.
The ancient mother of life, because she belonged to the old replaced pagan system, was demonized.
Wow.
The mother of life was twisted into the mother of harlots.
That is just, it's devastating. If we look critically at Savchuk's method here, he claims to be reading the text symbolically to find spiritual truths.
Right.
But his symbols are entirely severed from their historical lineage.
Completely severed.
By relying on later patriarchal Christian doctrine, he seems completely unaware that he is actively participating in the vilification of an ancient Egyptian symbol of motherhood.
That is the ultimate vulnerability of the literalist or purely futurist approach.
Yeah.
When you sever a text from its mythological roots, you create a vacuum. And you are forced to fill that vacuum by inventing new, often fear-based meanings for symbols that originally just represented natural cycles, starry constellations, or early concepts of motherhood.
Which brings us directly to the ultimate fear-based event in Revelation.
Armageddon.
Armageddon, the final battle, the lake of fire. Savchuk's video presents this as a literal, pending final judgment.
Right.
A moment in the near future where Christ returns with a sword to definitively, violently defeat all physical and spiritual enemies.
But Massey, maintaining his rigorous consistency, brings it right back to natural phenomena.
Natural phenomena, so no swords.
No literal swords.
Okay.
On pages 711 through 713, he dissects the very word Harmageddon.
Okay.
He argues it is derived from Harmaku.
Harmaku, who is that?
Harmaku is the Egyptian sun god of the double horizon, meaning the horizon of sunrise and the horizon of sunset.
Ah.
In Massey's reading, the war in heaven isn't a future global conflict involving armies, tanks, and supernatural wrath.
What is it then?
It is the daily and annual natural battle between light, the sun and darkness, the Apap dragon.
I just want to underline this. Armageddon isn't World War III. It's just sunset and sunrise.
Precisely. It's just the sun coming up. When Revelation describes the dragon being chained for 1,000 years, Massey mirrors this with the Egyptian deity Akar.
Okay, what does Akar do?
In the myths, Akar binds the dragon of the deep in the underworld so that the sun god can navigate the dangerous night safely and rise again in the morning.
So it's a cyclical natural process.
Yes, it is not a linear historical finality.
Okay, I buy the stars as a calendar, and the sun rising is a battle with darkness. But Revelation gets incredibly dark and punitive.
It does get very intense.
What about the lake of fire? You can't tell me a lake of literal fire where people are thrown is just an astronomical calendar.
You're right, it's not the calendar, it's the eschatology, the Egyptian afterlife ritual.
Ah, the soul's journey.
Exactly. In Egyptian belief, the lake of fire is the pool of the damned in Amenta, which is the underworld.
Okay.
It's where a devourer deity named Baba destroys the wicked souls who fail the judgment of the scales.
So it's not a future place on Earth.
No. Massey points out that this is a direct lift from the afterlife judgment journey in the Book of the Dead. It was a spiritual allegory for the purification of the soul after death.
Not a future geographic reality.
Right. Not an event on the human timeline.
There's another bizarre detail Massey points out regarding how the text is consumed that Savchuk basically glosses over.
Oh, the eating of the scroll.
Yes. There's a moment in chapter 10 where John is told to take a little book, a scroll from an angel, and physically eat it.
Right.
It tastes sweet in his mouth but turns his stomach bitter.
Yes, on page 696.
Mm-hmm.
Massey links this directly to a very specific Egyptian initiation ritual, the tale of Taht-Aan.
Taht-Aan. What happens in that tale?
In that ancient myth, a magic papyrus roll containing divine secrets is dissolved in water, and the protagonist drinks it to physically ingest its knowledge.
He drinks the book.
He drinks the book. The gnosis of salvation literally becomes the food of the soul.
Wow.
Massey argues this isn't a literal historical event happening to John. It's a surviving fragment of an Egyptian initiation rite about internalizing divine wisdom.
You know, what really strikes me here is the profound contrast in the emotional payload of these two interpretations.
Emotional payload, I like that.
Yeah. In his video, Savchuk explicitly tells his viewers not to fear the beast, but to focus on the hope of Jesus.
Right.
He says, and I quote, "If your reading of Revelation leaves you fearful of the beast instead of hopeful of the Lamb, you've missed the main point."
Which is a beautiful pastoral sentiment.
It is. It really is. But structurally, because Savchuk believes Armageddon is a literal, pending, violent event, the fear is baked right into the theology.
It's unavoidable.
Exactly. You can't separate the hope of rescue from the terror of the world ending. You have to believe in the horror to appreciate the rescue.
Right.
But Massey completely removes the fear.
Because for Massey, reading the Egyptian wisdom, the end of the world is just the sun setting and rising.
Defeating the dark every single morning.
Exactly. The horror is just an allegory for the mechanics of the universe, which are fundamentally stable, cyclical, and reliable.
It's the difference between believing a hurricane is coming to destroy your house versus looking at a barometer and realizing it's just going to rain.
That's a great way to put it. Which changes how we view the ending of the book, the New Jerusalem.
Right. Paradise restored.
Savchuk beautifully ties the end of Revelation back to the beginning of Genesis. For him, paradise lost in Eden becomes paradise restored in Revelation.
God dwells with man. There are no more tears. The tree of life is back. It's a literal and spiritual eternal dwelling.
It's incredible narrative symmetry for the Christian Bible.
It really is. But Massey, of course, identifies a completely different kind of foundation.
He does. On pages 714 and 715, Massey argues that the new heaven and new earth is the completion of that astronomical shift we discussed earlier.
The precession of the equinoxes.
Yes. It is the structural transition from the old 7-part heaven, which was based on the 7 stars of the pole,
Right.
to the new 12-part heaven based on the 12 signs of the zodiac.
Ah, the 12 foundations of the New Jerusalem.
Yes. This new heaven is laid down by the deity Atum-Ra.
After all.
Revelation describes the New Jerusalem as a city laid out foursquare. Massey says this isn't literal urban planning.
It's not a real city.
No, it is the heaven founded on the 4 cardinal points of the zodiacal calendar, the 2 solstices and the 2 equinoxes.
Oh, wow.
It's an architectural representation of the cosmos.
And what about God dwelling in the city?
Massey argues on page 716 that the God the Father dwelling in this new city in Revelation is actually Atum-Hui.
Atum-Hui.
the eternal being, which Massey traces as the linguistic and conceptual root of the Hebrew Yahweh. And the son who is worshipped alongside him is Iu, or Iusa, the ever-coming sun, which Massey claims was the mythological prototype later transformed into the historical Jesus.
Okay, if we zoom out and put these two methodologies side by side, the clash is just staggering.
It's immense.
It really comes down to a few core symbols where the difference is night and day.
It is the difference between reading a theology textbook and reading an ancient star map.
Exactly. I think we need to just trace it through. Let's do a quick recap of the major points.
Sure, let's lay it out.
Take the author. Savchuk looks at John on Patmos and sees a literal apostle receiving a literal vision of the future.
Whereas Massey points to pages 690 and 692 of his work and says, no, that is the divine scribe in the underworld, Taht-Aan on the Isle of Flame.
Right. From a critical standpoint, Savchuk is forced to ignore the mythological origins in favor of literal church history.
Correct.
Then take the Lamb of God. Savchuk looks at it and sees Jesus Christ as the ultimate sacrifice.
But Massey looks at the exact same lamb, cites pages 721 and 722, and says it assesses just the constellation Aries marking the start of spring, the solar transition from the calf to the lamb.
So Savchuk's view depends entirely on later Christian doctrine, completely missing the processional astronomy.
Exactly.
And the four living creatures. Savchuk sees echoes of Ezekiel's spiritual visions.
Massey sees Umsta, Hapi, Tumatef, and Kabsanuf guarding the coffin of Osiris as detailed on pages 705 and 706.
So Savchuk is reading anachronistically through the Old Testament, missing the much earlier Egyptian funerary prototypes.
Yes, he is.
Then you have the villains, the seven-headed dragon. Savchuk calls it Satan in his earthly kingdom.
And Massey identifies it on pages 706 and 707 as the solar dragon, the powers of the Great Mother, specifically the crocodile deity Sebek.
Savchuk applies a moral binary to what was originally just a natural symbol.
Right.
And the most tragic one, Babylon the Great Harlot. Savchuk preaches it as a corrupt, counterfeit religion.
While Massey reveals on pages 697 and 698 that this was apt, the pregnant hippopotamus of the Great Bear constellation, the ancient mother of creation.
Our assessment has to note that Savchuk relies on a later patriarchal demonization of an ancient mother goddess.
Definitely.
Than Armageddon. Savchuk expects a future literal bloodbath where Christ defeats evil.
Massey explains on pages 711 through 713 that it is Harmaku battling the Epap dragon, the cyclical daily battle between light and darkness.
Savchuk's futurist speculation turns a sunrise into a slaughter.
It really does.
And finally, the New Jerusalem. Savchuk sees the eternal dwelling of God and man.
And Massey, on pages 714 and 715, sees the establishment of the 12-part zodiacal heaven of Adam Ra.
So Savchuk's eschatology misses the structural transition from a pole star heaven to a zodiac heaven.
Completely misses it.
When you lay it out like that, it is a massive unbridgeable chasm.
Yeah.
We are looking at two entirely different ways of experiencing human history and human texts. I feel like we should actually include a table of this comparison in the show notes.
That's a great idea. I have the data right here. Let's make sure it gets added to the end of the transcript so people can reference the page numbers.
Perfect. When we look at Savchuk's method through the lens of Massey's historical standard, we really hit a wall.
We do.
Massey's framework suggests that Savchuk is applying modern evangelical hopes and fears to ancient symbols, relying heavily on unexamined supernatural assumptions.
While Massey's central conclusion is that literal historical readings of Revelation fundamentally misunderstand its core structure.
Right.
It is not pre-Christian prophecy fulfilled in Christian history.
Yeah.
It is the debris of ancient Egyptian wisdom, preserved and transformed Jewish and Christian forms.
Which means when you read it literally, you run the risk of making a monster out of a mother and a doomsday out of a sunrise.
That's exactly it.
It highlights just how critical our interpretive lens really is. If you approach a text believing it is a magical prediction, you will live your entire life in anticipation of its terrors. But if you can understand it as mythological poetry describing the natural world, you can appreciate its beauty without the dread.
Knowledge contextualizes fear. It always does.
Which leaves me with a lingering thought, something for all of us to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive.
What's that?
If the terrifying world-ending catastrophes described in the book of Revelation were originally just an ancient, poetic way of describing the stars shifting in the night sky and the sun rising each morning to defeat the dark.
Yeah.
What other ancient doomsday prophecies out there that millions of people are still terrified of today are actually just lost stargazing manuals?
containing an attempt to recover and reconstitute the lost origins of the myths and mysteries, types and symbols, religion and language, with Egypt for the mouthpiece, and Africa as the birthplace.